What happens when sanctions stop working and force takes their place? In January 2026, the United States launched a direct military operation inside Venezuela, capturing President Nicolás Maduro and instantly turning a long-running diplomatic crisis into a global flashpoint. In this video, we'll explain how Venezuela reached this breaking point, why Washington escalated from sanctions to military action, and what this moment means for Latin America and the global order. Because this conflict isn't just about Venezuela, it's about energy, sovereignty, and how power is exercised in the modern world. Venezuela has been in political and economic crisis for more than a decade. Once a major oil producer, the country saw its economy collapse amid corruption, mismanagement, falling production, and international sanctions. Millions fled as infrastructure and state institutions deteriorated. President Nicolás Maduro remained in power despite disputed elections and international pressure. The United States responded with sanctions targeting Venezuela's financial system and oil exports, while also pursuing legal cases accusing Maduro and senior officials of drug trafficking. One group frequently cited by U.S. authorities was the Cartel of the Suns, allegedly involving elements of Venezuela's security forces and designated by the U.S. as a terrorist organization in late 2025. By the end of that year, pressure intensified. Under an operation known as Operation Southern Spear, U.S. forces began seizing oil tankers in the Caribbean, describing the action as sanctions enforcement and counter-narcotics activity. At the core of the conflict were overlapping strategic interests. For the United States, Venezuela represented a mix of law enforcement and geopolitical concerns. U.S. officials argued that drug trafficking charges justified decisive action, while tanker seizures aimed to restore credibility to sanctions that were being bypassed. At the same time, Venezuela's vast oil reserves made the situation economically and strategically significant. For Maduro's government, survival depended on maintaining control and securing revenue, particularly through oil exports. Sanctions narrowed its options, while concessions risked internal collapse. As enforcement tightened in late 2025, Washington's strategy shifted from pressure and deterrence toward direct action. That shift became clear on January 3, 2026. U.S. forces carried out airstrikes in and around Caracas, followed by a special forces operation that ended with the surrender and capture of Nicolás Maduro and his wife. They were flown out of Venezuela and transferred to U.S. custody. The U.S. government framed the operation as a judicial action to bring Maduro to trial on charges related to drug trafficking and corruption. Venezuelan authorities and allies condemned it as an illegal military intervention. In the aftermath, tanker seizures continued. The U.S. also finalized the sale of Venezuelan oil worth about $500 million, part of a larger agreement valued at roughly $2 billion, with proceeds placed in U.S.-controlled accounts. The reaction was swift and divided. Several Latin American countries, along with Spain, expressed concern over sovereignty and regional stability. Russia condemned the operation at the United Nations, calling it a violation of international law. Beyond diplomacy, the conflict reshaped Venezuela's role in energy markets. Oil, once constrained by sanctions, became a tightly controlled geopolitical asset, reinforcing debates over regime change, sanctions enforcement, and the use of force.
Three outcomes now seem possible. In a best-case scenario, Venezuela enters a negotiated transition with international oversight and gradual economic stabilization. In a worst-case scenario, power struggles and instability trigger prolonged unrest and regional spillover. The most likely outcome is a fragile middle ground. A slow, uncertain transition shaped by legal battles, economic pressure, and continued international involvement. The 2026 Venezuela conflict shows how quickly diplomacy can give way to force when sanctions, law enforcement, and geopolitics collide. What happened in Caracas wasn't just about removing a leader. It was about setting a precedent. And how that precedent is handled will matter far beyond Venezuela.
If you want more clear, fact-based analysis on global conflicts and power politics, subscribe to the channel and let me know what story you want covered next.